not exactly sure why it's showing no one in the screen when I went live. See what happens here in a second. There we go. Okay, folks, we might have a little bit of a delay here. Still trying to figure that out. Yeetmeister, when I talk to you later, maybe you can tell me how to start these things up better. So welcome to Miller Time. I'm State Representative Tim Miller, and this is my weekly show. Most weeks at 7 o'clock. Last week I had a legislative responsibility, so I wasn't able to do it. So I'm glad that we're back here live with you again tonight. I have my special guest, State Representative Jeremy Munson. Some of you watching the show may have seen him on other shows. Good friend of mine, serves kind of the surrounding Mankato area. For those that don't know me, I'm a state representative here in Minnesota, and I serve District 17A, which is about 100 miles straight west of the Twin Cities. So we've got a lot to talk about one subject tonight, and we'll certainly get to that. But first of all, I want to remind people that are watching that if you like this, please subscribe. It's the easiest way to hook up with me every Monday night. Otherwise, you need to go to my email, which I send out as a legislative update each Monday, or on Facebook and find the link. That's one of the weak spots of doing a YouTube Live is the link changes each week. But if you subscribe, then it'll just give you a reminder and you can go right on to the link right away. So we're going to get right into it tonight. Just a quick review with Miller Time for those that are kind of new. We talk about issues that are important to my district and the state, and only on federal issues when it relates to the district or state. And certainly this week with the COVID-19 outbreak and everything that's with it, we certainly have a big issue here. In my district, we did have, as of yesterday, I'm not sure if there's any more, but we had the first case in Renville County. I was told that's the furthest out from the Twin Cities in the state of Minnesota, so that's pretty significant. We will, as while Jeremy's talking, I'll try and bring up a little bit of the stats. I don't want to bore you with details, but just a little bit. We get daily updates from the Department of Health. They are doing a good job, which, by the way, when you see the wiggling on the screen a little bit, we're doing makeshift. No, that's okay. We're doing a makeshift in my office today, and if we bump my table, it does that a little bit. So everyone... That's right. Everyone has to. The world isn't shaking. It's just my table. So anyway, I do want to jump right into a couple things. Jeremy, anytime you want to jump in or comment, I would like you to comment on probably most specifically the news from the governor this evening. Pretty significant. We'll get to that in a second.
All right.
But that's what I'm going to want you to do. I want to give a quick overview. Things have accelerated very quickly in the state of Minnesota, the whole United States. But here in Minnesota, here's what kind of happened. Quick play-by-play. Last Monday in session, we came into the week knowing that the Department of Health was asking for some money. The Senate had come out with a suggested amount based on talking with the Department of Health. And on Monday, we passed about $21 million, just a little bit shy of that went into an emergency account in the Department of Health. And that was really to accommodate not only the Department of Health's work, but also if providers, hospitals, clinics needed something, they can apply and request money from that. As the week progressed on, as you know, last Thursday is when things really got crazy in a hurry. That's when you started hearing nationally of like sports ending and all sorts of things all over the United States. Well, here in Minnesota, we passed another $30 million. We just transferred it over to the state's general emergency fund account. And typically that money is used for natural disasters like floods or large tornadoes or that sort of thing. We have used it for a couple other things in recent years, and this year we made it accessible to the governor. That's really in the event that we are not meeting as a legislature and he needs access to funds, and that was supported unanimously, and I think that was a good thing. Then we had on Sunday, a lot was happening over the weekend. We got some early word on Saturday, but officially on Sunday, as everyone knows, the governor said that by Wednesday there will be a plan for all schools and K through 12 schools in the state of Minnesota to be closed. And we can certainly talk about some of those details and what that looks like. I've gotten some comments from people back in my district that are concerned about that, and we can go into that. And then today, we're at the Capitol. It's a very thin crowd here. It's amazing because with social distancing,
Oh,
a word.
I
That's
forgot
right.
about that.
We're breaking
The rules.
This is not a camera trick. We're breaking the rules. But with social distancing, the legislature is abiding by the rules of the Department of Health. So we actually had only half of the House members in the House at any one time. We have Group A, Group B. Representative Munson and I are both in Group B, and actually what they did earlier this morning before recess, they didn't need us. We're kind of sitting around now waiting for an agreed-to legislation between the House and Senate that effectively will put more money on the table. Earlier today, it was between $99 and $149 million. The talk has been that will be in no-interest loans or grants or both, and we frankly don't know where that's at. We've been just kind of hanging around. We'll get a text when it's time to go back over there, and we'll learn that. So even maybe as the show is going on, we might be able to do that. I want to make one final comment, and then I want to send it over to Representative Munson to kind of explain what the governor did. I don't know if you have the statute available. I can bring that up quickly. Okay. So, but in general, I think to this point, I'm on the end of, let's make sure that we make wise decisions, but I want to be cautious not to overreact. I think there's some prudent things to do, but we can't do everything before things happen around here. We have been having about a doubling of cases in Minnesota over the last couple of days. I think we'll be able to pull those specific numbers up. I'll look those up while Jeremy's talking. But in any case, to this point, I honestly believe, and anyone that knows me knows I tend to criticize the agencies quite often, the Department of Health is doing a good job. The way that they've organized, whether you agree or not with K-12 school being out, the way the Department of Education has handled that and processed that has been pretty good. I like the decisions. Tonight there was a decision made, I keep teasing it, that Representative Munson will bring up in a second, that I'm a little concerned about, and I will look to your comments on that. As Representative Munson is here, I'm going to look up at the comments and look up some information. So right now, if you'd like to talk.
Sure.
Go ahead.
All right. Well, thanks for tuning in. So the governor tonight announced that by executive order, he's going to require that all bars and restaurants no longer serve people after 5 p.m. tomorrow and until March 27th. So in other words, if you want to celebrate St. Patrick's Day tomorrow night, you can't go to a bar and you can't go to a restaurant. He is saying that restaurants should be allowed to do takeout. Those that are set up to do so can still do takeout. But that means hundreds of thousands of Minnesotans are going to be out of work for the time being, that are servers, wait staff. So it's going to cause a pretty big disruption to our economy. And of course, there's also an issue with travelers that are here in Minnesota staying at hotels. I don't know where they're going to get food, but I guess they'll have to find some restaurants that do takeout. And I don't know if that applies to fast food restaurants, if they can still do drive-through and just not have people in the restaurant. But some more details on that. If you're looking for the statute, Minnesota statute, it's 2019, section 12.21, subdivision 3, is where you can find what the governor has the authority to do this. It's kind of a gray area. There was a bill coming through. I'm in Health and Human Services Finance Committee. There was a bill that came through last week that was asking for permission for the governor to declare a state of emergency during peacetime for public health reasons. And that bill didn't get through committee, yet the governor still declared a state of emergency on Friday. And so some of us are questioning his authority to do so. But overall, I think that people should be, having social distance. This is 6 feet right here, right? People should be having at least 3 to 6 feet between them, washing hands, not going out, especially if you have somebody that's at home that's compromised or elderly. So I think people are overwhelmingly doing the right thing, but this step that bans restaurants and bars, maybe it goes too far. Maybe it's too crippling. Maybe it doesn't take into consideration small towns that have a great little restaurant and people want to have a right to go to the restaurant. But
yeah, and I guess what my concern all along has been is I tell people, I use an old man term. I guess I am an old man, but to be prudent. I don't know that there's a better term, but just to make wise decisions and not to overreact. My concern has been all along that as people get more excitable by this, and this is one of the, don't do that. I saw that comment. Don't be tempted by Yeetmeister. He just means trouble.
He's got antlers back here. Those are
I just need to move over a little bit, then I have it. So, but anyway, my concern all along, and certainly the media and then social media and other things can foster this, that people start panicking. We've been joking for the last week about the whole toilet paper thing, which is a phenomena that still baffles me. I don't get it, but it's very real to the people that are doing this. And I saw the lines this weekend at Costco. It's when we start panicking that we start making irrational decisions. Irrational decisions can lead to a little bit of social disorder. It can roll out worse than that. I've heard no evidence at all so far of whether it be people looting or people, out of frustration or fear going after other people. Even on social media, it seems pretty tame. So I'm very proud, basically, of how citizens are reacting to this. But when the governor makes a statement like this, which, again, maybe this is something that's going to be required, in my opinion, it's a little premature. But history will decide that. But when we make this decision that restaurants are going to be closed to in-house, and I think you said that they can still do takeout, where applicable. Mm-hmm. Some restaurants can't realistically do that. St. Patrick's Day tomorrow, I thought maybe do takeout green beer. We'll see how that works.
Luck of the Irish.
That's right. I don't think the Irish bar is going to be too happy about this closing down at 5. That's when I start becoming concerned about things. I start becoming concerned. One of the downsides to having kids stay home from school is that they have a lot of downtime. One of the things that was discussed is to do
Tele-eating?
Teleeducation? No.
Yeah, okay. So
yeah. Teaching people online, because my wife, as most people know, teaches at Ridgewater College, and she does a lot of online lessons. Well, even they've been told not to do those. Well, the schools, they're being told, no, you're just going to close down. So now you have closed down, you have public places closed down, and you have kids with idle hands. Now, you might have an 8-year-old and a 10-year-old that drives you crazy, but what happens when you have juniors and seniors with driver's licenses with nothing better to do? And by the way, about $1.80 a gallon gas or whatever it is we're seeing now. This is where the concerns that I have come in. I can't control it, nor do I want to. I don't think that government's job. That's just simply a concern that I have as we go moving forward.
Yeah. Well, what do you think about? People who are already not going to restaurants a lot. They didn't want to get together with large groups of people, so they were. I think that the run on the grocery stores was in part due to people not eating out as much and choosing to cook at home. And then when the schools were, scheduled to be closed, then a lot of people went to the grocery stores because all of a sudden they're going to have to cook a lot of food for their kids that what they would normally eat at school. So with the closure of the restaurants today, it's going to cause a lot more people to realize they can't eat out anymore and they have to get more food. So hopefully we don't cause more panic and pandemonium around grocery stores.
Keep talking. I'm typing.
Okay. Well, so that's kind of my concerns and thoughts, and I know that the governor's been talking with retailers. Why restaurants? Why not the Mall of America? I heard that today when people asked me, why is the Mall of America still allowed to be open? And people are congregating there and shopping in stores. I think people just should keep their distances from people, but I'm just questioning whether this top-down mandate for all restaurants and bars wasn't just too much.
Yeah, and I guess my concern with that is, in fairness to everyone involved, where there was a couple years ago, we had something similar but different. Out by us, we had the avian influenza outbreak. It was a high-path strain of influenza that was killing turkeys and chickens almost instantly. And you actually saw sort of a smaller version of this, a regional version of what you're seeing now as it related to farms in a lot of different ways. And the Board of Animal Health, which I think is a great organization, they did a great job, but one of their biggest challenges, and this was the phrase they used that is stuck in my mind, is they said figuring it out was like building a 747 while it was flying. That's very appropriate for this. We are trying to figure a lot of things. The state does have contingency emergency plans that we're seeing implemented. So, for example, there's preparation for the Excel Center to be used as a makeshift hospital if needed. I can tell you that's going to be under very, very extreme circumstances. But the state has already scenarioed that one out, and they have preparations for what would have to happen. So we do have a lot of this planned. But what we're doing right now is we're trying to preemptively react, if there is such a thing. I don't know if you can prove it, but that's what we're seeing. And, what's the word I'm looking for? An ounce of prevention can go a long way. Well, I certainly agree with that. But at some point, we're starting to anticipate things that maybe aren't there. And I think that's what Jeremy is maybe intimating. That's certainly what I believe is we are now telling private businesses what they should do, and we're telling the people of Minnesota what they should do. I think we should strongly encourage. I think there are circumstances. I'm okay with schools closing. I think there are some preventative things that we can do. But now, in my opinion, we're starting to maybe extend past my comfort zone.
Well, and I would say that we have this ability. Let's just say that we do want to close businesses to try to keep people from congregating. There's only so long that the state can step forward and pay for this economic impact. So today in Governor Walz's announcement, he said that if you are displaced because of this ban on restaurants and bars, then you can qualify for unemployment. So you could apply. They want you to go online to the deed website and apply for unemployment payments. Well, there is only so much money in the unemployment account. It's about $2 billion because of this great economy that we're in, that we have low unemployment. So there's a lot of money sitting in this account that hasn't been used. But it's not going to go very long if hundreds of thousands of people in the restaurant and service industry are displaced. And so we can only go for maybe a couple of weeks. I don't know the numbers exactly, but maybe 2-3 weeks. Is it going to be best to do this now, or is it best to do it a month from now? That's kind of the question. Based on the path, basically, this is just going to slow people from getting infected. It isn't going to necessarily prevent people from getting infected. We're just spreading it out so that the spike in impacted people that it doesn't spike up too high, and that the hospital can accommodate everybody.
Yeah, there's been some comments, as you can see, on the emergency orders and what that looks like, what that means, and I've been writing some comments on there, but I think we also need to probably talk about that for a couple minutes. So just to explain, I have it written up there, but I'll explain it again. The way statute is written is the governor had the ability to do an emergency order, peacetime emergency order for 5 days, which gave him those powers that Jeremy had stated, which is frankly sort of pretty broad powers. That's one thing we're kind of learning on the fly too. A little bit broader than I'm comfortable with, but that was passed along before I was here. So we may have to address that again in the future. But then what happens after those 5 days is the constitutional officers, so basically Secretary of State, Attorney General, State Auditor, am I missing one? They are empowered to extend that another 25 days with their approval. I don't know what that approval looks like. I'm guessing it's some sort of letter written. So you can presume, based on who our constitutional officers are, and by the way, the 5 days started on Friday the 13th, last Friday, when he submitted the order. So the clock's already ticking on that. So obviously we anticipate they'll extend it the additional 25 days. After that total of 30 days, which I think we said was April 12th, is what we're looking at.
April 14th.
I thought April 12th is when the 30 days of the executive order, because 13th to the 12th.
Okay.
Well, whatever. So about the 12th through the 14th. Point being...
Oh, yeah, you're right. We come back the 14th.
Yeah, we come back on the 14th, but the executive peacetime emergency powers does end. And after that, it can only be approved by the legislature, by the House and Senate. Now, Ann had said... because I said I don't support that. Sort of a simplified answer. That's why I wanted to talk about it, because I likely don't support it. And she said, why not? Well, for me, here's the deal. Emergency powers are a dangerous thing in our form of government. Now, they are needed at times. It has shown up in our nation's history at the federal level. I'm sure at the state of Minnesota it has. I know just like last year, I think we had 3 different limited peacetime emergencies, meaning limited, they were regional. When the roofs were collapsing from the snow last year, I think we had something. We may have had some flooding in the spring, some of that sort of stuff. But this is a statewide one. So for the executive branch to carry those powers without what I would call legislative oversight is just not healthy for our system of government. When it's absolutely positively needed, we afford that to the executive branch because they're able to move quickly. The agencies answer to them. But the important thing here is that Jeremy and I answer to you at the very local level, different than what the governor does. We are the ones that have to vote on things. That's why we vote on the budgets. That's why we pass bills for the governor to sign, granted, but we do everything through the legislator. That legislative authority is the key to a free society, in my opinion. And for people that may think that, well, okay, now he's overreacting a little bit. We're talking about a virus that's out there. This is very dangerous times. It's at those times that we need to make sure that we adhere to constitutional authorities. That's how our form of government stays secure and solid. Because what happens is if we get a little bit panicky and we say, well, just governor and U.S. president, take care of it, do whatever you want, that weakens us for the next time, or weakens us when we're in less critical times. Yeah. So that's
a lot of people have asked me about the governor's authority to do this. And one of the things they ask me is, can the governor disarm people? Can they go in and just confiscate guns? So that's come up in my district as a question, and we've researched it, and the governor actually specifically does not have that authority.
Right.
They can disarm someone temporarily, but they can't go in and just confiscate guns from people en masse. That was actually a change that Republicans put in the last decade.
Yeah, and we're doing a lot of guessing because it appears that for Minnesota we're ramping up. The numbers aren't going down; they're going up. We don't know how high they're going to go up, and a lot of these measures are, as Representative Munson said, was to flatten that curve out so we peak at a lower amount and it starts going down quicker. That's the ultimate goal right now. And so if we're doing sort of things that kind of aren't really fun or difficult because kids are staying home or things like that, or here at the legislature everyone's basically at home, that's prudent to me. That's something that will help us get out of this quicker so we don't have to face some more difficult decisions. But I want to be clear on something. When we show our concerns on the governor having the power to effectively close down or almost close down restaurants and bars, we think that's heading in the wrong direction. That's not to say that we anticipate that there is going to be these radical sweeping changes in the state of Minnesota. I'm going to compliment Governor Walz on this, okay? And people that know me, that may not come too often, so enjoy this moment. But everything that he has said to this point in all of his conversations and leadership conversation and emails and stuff that have come to us, they are trying to do right by the people of Minnesota. Now, of course that makes sense, but what they're not trying to do is they're not trying to insert their personal philosophies. They're not trying to subvert the law or sneak new things in. I've seen no indications of that whatsoever. Again, this restaurant and bar thing is within his powers. I didn't know that. But as Jeremy said, taking people's weapons or, for example, telling people they can't leave their homes and stuff, he's not empowered to do that, and that's not going to be coming.
Okay.
So, anything else you want to cover on this?
No.
Okay, well, I appreciate it looks like a handful of people have been on tonight, so that's good. We're going to be wrapping up here in just a moment. We're not going to just stay on for the sake of staying on. So I really appreciate you coming in. Again, be sure and subscribe if you'd like to watch the show more in the future. Let me know about issues you would like to talk about that are important to you, and let everyone know about the show. So thanks for coming tonight, and have a great evening.